show you all the bills I drop. When I grab my pull stocks, Wednesdays when the comics drop. Whoa. I'll take you to the comics.
Hey guys, I'm here to talk about Saturday programming at WonderCon. So first thing before we talk at all about Saturday at WonderCon, the way we've put together this series of videos is that they all build on each other. So if you've not watched the previous videos that I've put up on WonderCon, please stop here, press pause or press stop, go back to the other videos and watch them in order. In particular, the last one about panels on Friday, we spent the first good chunk of it just talking about philosophy of panels and kind of how I go about looking at them and evaluating how much time I'm going to spend on them. So this one I'm just going to jump right in to the panels themselves and talk about a few of the ones on Saturday that catch my attention. So one thing on Saturday, make sure you know it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy on the floor. It's going to be crazy in the panels and in lines to get to the panels. So make sure to plan accordingly. I would not be surprised if we see a sellout this year. I think that's very, very likely, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's early. So make sure to keep that all in mind. So on Saturday, the first panel that really caught my attention is at 10:30. It's called Despair with Layman. And so if you're not familiar with John Layman, he is pretty big writer over the last few years. He's become a little bit more mainstream maybe with his work with Batman and Detective Comics. But definitely his claim to fame is the book Chew, which is quite an amazing piece of odd fiction, and it's one of the types of books that if you've not read, I'm not going to spoil it, you just need to go check it out. But Chew deals with cannibalism, the FDA, and a lot of fun stuff, so take a look at that. But he always puts on a good panel. He's a funny guy, and he usually gives away some interesting ideas during the panel, so I'd definitely check in on that. At 12:30, I have a conflict in terms of two panels that I'm looking at, and this kind of really fits with how I build a lot of my schedule in terms of looking at panels, is I do try to build in conflicts if possible, because again, I'm not going to be really willing to put in a lot of time into line. So when I come to places where it's kind of a tie or a little bit of a difference, I like to book both of them and then take a look at what the lines look like leading up to them. So in that case, you have Falling Skies in 300 DE, and then IDW's big panel in room 208. And so obviously the IDW comic panel is going to be a much smaller room and a smaller audience, and Falling Skies is going to be bigger and a little bit more Hollywood in tone and in what they're bringing to it. That being said, neither ones I'm going to spend a whole lot of time in line with. They're both panels that I'd be willing to get there, 15 minutes to a half hour early and check out. And so probably in the case there with the other big programming going on in 300 DE that day, I probably won't be making it into Falling Skies, but I'll definitely take a look at it because I probably would give it a slight nod to the IDW one. But both ones that are of interest there. Also at 1 o'clock, there's one that you might miss if you don't look real closely at the schedule, called Mainstream Monsters, and it's in room 300 AB. And so it's a fairly large room for a comic type panel. But Mark Waid, who's quite the prolific writer of things like Kingdom Come, and he has got his current run on Daredevil and just finished up on Irredeemable and Incorruptible. And again, another funny guy, really interesting guy, but he's leading a panel with some major comic writers just talking about how to bring the villain to the front of the comic and kind of making the villain or the monster that main character, which is a really just interesting topic for anyone that's interested in fiction of any sort, whether it's film or books. And so I'm definitely interested in him. So it might be a situation where I go to half of the IDW or Falling Skies and then jump over to that, because I don't think there'll be that competitive of a line. Because again, it's a larger room and it's a comic panel, and a lot of times when those come together, unless it's Jim Lee, they don't fill up the room to capacity. At 3 o'clock in room 300 AB is a DC New 52 panel, and that kind of keeps up a theme of DC just dominating the show throughout the weekend. If you've looked at your schedule, they have 17 panels planned that are very DC centric, and then a lot of other ones that kind of have DC guys on them but aren't so DC centric maybe. So DC is really looking to put an exclamation point on this show, and so I look for them to make some decent sized announcements. If they haven't already planned that by now, the fact going into the weekend and seeing that Marvel is so distant, it's really a nice time for them to be center stage and get all of the media blitz. And so I definitely am interested in checking that out. And it's another one that I don't think is going to have any line or any real problem of getting into. Following it, though, I think this gets a little bit more competitive, and so it might be necessary to get in there early to be able to sit through the DC 52 one a little bit, is Teen Titans Go. And so if you've been following the action with Cartoon Network and their DC block, Green Lantern and Young Justice just unfortunately ended, and they're getting replaced by a new Batman cartoon and Teen Titans Go. And so they're using this weekend as a time to really push Teen Titans Go and show footage and have voice actors there and talk about it and so on. And then the next one that really interests me, and I'm hoping this one isn't too crowded of a panel, is Under the Dome at 7 o'clock, which is a new TV show that's coming out. Brian K. Vaughan, who's pretty much the rock star writer right now in comics in a lot of ways, right there with Scott Snyder, is going to be there talking about it and the work that he's put in with the show. Should be really interesting to see kind of what he's coming up with and how it's going to look on TV. And it's another one that I don't think is going to be super crowded because it is so late in the evening. And so a lot of times that brings a little bit less competitive crowds unless it's something like The Nerdist or Kevin Smith or something along those lines. So, okay, so that's just a little talk on Saturday. Saturday is the busiest day again at the show. That's normal, that's to be expected. It's going to be the busiest with the panels. There's going to be the most offerings. So you can see I don't have a ton on there, but that's partly strategic because a lot of the panels that I see there are ones that either the creators are going to be on other panels different days, or there's other ways to get around it. Some people choose to avoid the exhibition floor on Saturdays and really hit the panels. I'm kind of the opposite. A lot of times I try and hit the floor the most because usually that's when there's the most swag, and later in the day there's usually a lot of the deals start to kick in. Because definitely Sunday is deal time, and next week we'll talk more about exhibitors at the show, but leading into late Saturday, the exhibitors start to kind of want to wheel and deal a little bit too. So we'll talk about that more next week, okay? All right, until next time.
How do you want it? You can wait for the trade, you can back issue one and appeal rising as you go. Head out to Black Horse, reading Dr. Horrible and rooting for Bad Horse. I'll break it down for you now, baby, it's simple. If you reading X-Men, I'm reading X-Men. Witchblade, FF, Usagi.